And now in looking ahead to the way we're going to actually lay out our site completely, there are a couple different ways to approach the overall layout. The first is the idea of using absolute widths, so that even if somebody continues to expand the size of the text, the column sizes will stay consistent. So for example, if the user increases the size of their text, should the width of this also increase, or should it just bump down to make extra lines since the text is bigger? So this question of using absolute or relative measurements for certain elements on the page leads us directly to think about both responsive layouts and accessible layouts. So back here on our page, we can simulate what it would be like to change the font size in the browser and how that might affect this layout by changing the font size on the HTML element. So we'll go to the HTML element and we'll set the font size to 20 pixels. So by default, it's going to be 16. So we're bumping it up a little bit. And notice how everything kind of scales based on that size. So now if we scroll down to our snippet, you see that our font has scaled and so is our image because they're all sized to REMs. But now you notice that they're stacked on top of one another. The reason for this is because now that things have increased in size, there's no longer room for two of them on a single line. So because they're inline blocks, they'll just flow to the next line. Now if we adjusted some things here, so for example, I'm going to inspect this image and we'll set the width to a pixel value, let's say 50 pixels. So if we're able to reduce the size of that image, we can still have the layout that we want and also have the font size be expanded. So in this case, we kind of have to make a call as to what elements should be resized when the font size is adjusted. This is keeping in mind that most of the time the font size will be adjusted for accessibility purposes. Someone consistently has a hard time reading small text. Do we want to zoom in these images as well so they're bigger and easier to see? Or is it more important to have a consistent layout? Now, it doesn't have to be one or the other. If we wanted to, we could set a fixed width to our entire site. And so if the browser got smaller, the content would continue to the right of the browser and the user would horizontally scroll to see everything. That is, everything would kind of zoom in. But in general, we'll want to avoid horizontal scrolling. And just intuitively, it kind of feels like these thumbnail images aren't necessarily that critical to see up close, and that the layout is more visually important in order to convey structure and the importance of certain content. So if we wanted to shift this over, we could just shift any place where we're using REMs now to using pixels wherever it will impact layout.